good.
Okay, I call to order our
Shut
special
up
council workshop. And we do have a quorum. We've got one missing.
He will be back.
Ryan, will
He
you back?
ran away.
He's missing when he's here.
Okay.
He's not
You
here to
wanna-
defend himself, so he can say
You want to
that.
say
Can
that,
say anything. I
Jim?
can say
In
anything.
case you want to say that?
He's gonna have to watch this to know I said that.
Well,
Okay, let's move into the, obviously, the topic of discussion, which is the, our sign regulations. And we all have a number of, a lot of information that's been given to us, including the ordinance, as well as some pictorial evidence, if you will, of signage around our community. And with that, I'll kind of turn it over to Leroy, and you can flesh that out for us.
What we wanted to do tonight, our signed ordinance has not been adhered to or enforced to great lengths in the past. And now we have some new code enforcement, building inspector staff, which I'll have introduce themselves in a second. Before we went out and started enforcing the signed ordinance, and then under the yard sale signs, which is a separate ordinance, we just wanted to go through with the city council, show them some of the things that we have out there, make sure we're all on the same page before we start going out and enforcing it.
Yep.
And then talk about how we deal with things that have been done in the past that was after the ordinance was adopted, but for one reason or another was let go and not enforced. I will say that in Article 9 in Chapter 4, this covers the entire city, including the historic district, but it does not supersede the historic preservation ordinance. So there are some more restrictive requirements in the historic preservation ordinance that would also apply within the historic district. We're not getting into those tonight. We're getting into generally around town and the sign ordinance in general, not the historic part of it. With that, I'll let you all introduce yourselves, and then we will kick it off.
All right, I'm Bill Darby. Been with the city now for 5 weeks. So
Congratulations, welcome, and congratulations.
thank you.
Mike Zimmerman. I've been with the city since the last day of December. So
And Mike is,
So you guys code enforcement,
I am code enforcement building inspector.
and you are
The same thing.
same thing. Well, I'm Brian Guthrie, councilman.
We know each other.
Okay. Just making sure everybody knows everybody.
and we just recently met, so it's nice to meet you. I'm glad you're on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got some big shoes to fill from
Steve Gentling, Mayor.
Jeff Taylor, he already knows me. I've known him since he's a little kid.
Okay, ready to get started with the presentation? All right, so this is ordinance 3215, Article 9. This is just the opening picture. It's a project sign and a temp banner there, and there's a real estate sign. So, but we'll cover it. We'll cover all those different types of signs later on in the presentation. The next slide is over awnings. And so it says that the lowest part of the awning should be at least 8 feet above the sidewalk and not exceed 8 feet in depth. This is just a picture of an awning. It probably isn't 8 feet, but it would be considered a legally non-conforming awning at this point in time because it's in existence. And above that is a projecting sign.
Is there something wrong with the projecting sign?
It may have been over 4 feet away from the building.
Yeah.
So the thing about it is everything's in existence.
Right. Down there, down there. What we're talking about is not the stuff that's down there. He's just showing these pictures of it.
But
Yeah,
this
I
is
understand,
kind of
but I'm
the
just
thing he's
saying.
got a picture of it.
But
in
it-
existence today.
Yeah.
But
What
if
I'm
that awning or that sign becomes 50% damage, then it would have to be brought up to the code that we have adopted now.
Right.
Okay. Good clarification. Thank you.
and unless we hear concerns from you all, even though this ordinance has not been strictly enforced in the past, any new signs or constructions, we are going to try to make sure they meet the code.
So they're basically grandfathered in for right now.
Yes.
Till something, like you said, till something happens.
But the new ones, we plan to enforce, unless as we go through this, you all have heartburn with something, then we need to stop and have some discussion.
All right, next slide shows another projecting sign. Again, it's been there for quite a while. So it'd be a legally non-conforming sign. It currently doesn't have anything on the face of it. It's just been painted. So
So if they go to put something on the face of it, boom, it's gotta conform. Right.
No,
Well-
they can maintain it or change the face, but if the structure itself becomes damaged,
Okay,
then it will have to be brought up.
okay.
Now, I understand though that can be brought in front of, say, if this is in, or historic preservation, or if it's outside of historic district planning commission, or I would imagine planning, and then they could say, grant a special use permit or a special dispensation for the sign, depending on, because I remember some things like that have come up in the past where the scale of the sign at 4 foot and 4 foot off the building disappeared completely on the face of the building, and then they asked if they could go a little bit bigger, and they showed, and this was in the historic district, and it looked good, and it conformed with the structure, and looked good, and complemented the building, so that went through.
There is a potential to go to the Board of Adjustments for a variance outside the historic
Yes.
district.
Yes.
For example, Taco Bueno sign is a little larger than is allowed, but when you looked at the other signs out there, it was consistent with what was already there, and they were granted a variance.
I've got a question on that last slide, if you'll back up to it. If we can. Now, you're talking about damage like storm damage, or somebody runs into it with a semi-truck and knocks it off, or you've got to replace it totally, but you're not talking about maintenance. I get up there to replace the anchors in the top part of that, and I notice that I've got busted weld, so I pull the whole sign down and I re-weld it and I put it back up there. That's not what you're talking about, right?
That would be your guys' interpretation. According to code, if it comes down, then it has to be brought to code.
So if it comes down, it's considered damage.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was trying to clarify.
It's
Thank
kind
you.
of just like off-site advertising. The sign comes down, it's done. Just a fact
Not
of
the
life.
face of the sign.
Is that how our
the
ordinance
sign
reads?
itself. The structure. Not the
Right.
Our sign ordinance doesn't directly say, it says if it is damaged, then it must be brought up to code.
yeah, let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
It covers the permit part of it. So it's unlawful to construct, modify, or relocate any sign without first obtaining a sign permit.
Oops.
So I would go to say is that modifying it would be the face of the sign, so it would require a permit. When it addresses the non-conforming signs that become damaged or destroyed, if rebuilt, must conform to the standards of the ordinance.
What if someone modifies a sign after we adopt, well, we don't need to adopt this because this is already adopted.
Yes.
Yes.
What if when we decide to enforce it, if that's what we decide to do, and someone goes and modifies a sign, even the face of it, without getting a permit, what happens?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay.
Well, and that brings up
We-
another question for
We
me.
there's a lot of even sign companies that do not realize that when you change the face of the sign, because you are modifying it, you need to get a permit. For example, the new Mexican restaurant come in. Reputable sign firm got a permit for the new sign on the building, but where they changed the face on the existing sign, they didn't get a permit for that because they didn't realize. So depending on the nature of it, on that one, we said, hey, you know, it meets the requirements, but you need to come in and get a permit for the sign.
Like my
face.
sign, when it went from just the C logo to with case over the top of
You
it, I
should have
replaced
come in and
that.
got a new
I
permit.
should have got.
Anytime you
I should have
change
got
the
the first
face.
one first,
That's
but
a $1,000
I should have got the new
fine.
permit after that, right?
$1,000 fine.
$1,000
I'll be to
fine
see you
today.
tomorrow.
And dinner.
Yeah, dinner and drinks.
Go ahead.
Signs permitted as a business sign shall not be changed to an outdoor advertising sign. I think I heard one of y'all say that earlier. Here's,
Outdoor advertising.
Outdoor, meaning,
outdoor advertising would be an
Off-site.
off-premise
So the
outdoor
top
advertising
one
sign.
there,
You're advertising something on a different site than where the sign is.
so the top
It's
one
an
there is not
off-premise sign.
appropriate. The other
In other words, the
The one
jungle
is
is
the little one
advertised
beside
at the jungle, you
Well-
can't advertise the jungle on Division.
right, we don't.
With a billboard.
Neither do, and we don't.
Right,
Yeah.
but there are people that do.
So that,
So the top one's illegal then?
It's
Yeah.
non-conforming.
Non-conforming, I think is
Non-conforming.
the
I'm sorry, it's slipped, yeah, it's illegal.
Yeah.
What's the difference? I'm sorry.
okay, so here's a list of prohibited signs. So off-premise signs, including billboards, signs erected in violation of the city's building, electrical, or sign codes, portable signs, roof signs, signs attached to utility poles or other city infrastructure, signs illuminated to an intensity or brightness as to cause glare or impair vision, signs erected on the public right-of-way, signs on vehicles used as on-premise.
Could we stop?
Yep.
On signs erected on the public right-of-way, there is one exception there. And if you look at the yard sale ordinance, which we'll cover later, we actually say in there, you get one sign, you have to use our signs, and you get 3 signs from us. One, you can put on the premises where the yard sale's taking place. The other 2, you can put on public right-of-way. So that's an exception to that that's provided by the yard sale ordinance that we'll cover later. But that's the only exception that I'm aware of.
Yes, that's correct. Signs on vehicles used as on-premise advertising. Banner signs except for temporary use.
Let's talk about that signs on vehicles real quick. So what you're saying is that if Ed wanted to advertise the jungle with a magnetic sign on his vehicle, he's not allowed to do that?
Yes, he is allowed to do that. It just
Talking
can't
about
be,
signs like on the bed of the truck, like Benton's has got
Benton's
down in
has
front of
got-
their
Are you
store.
talking about the signs that says clock?
Real truck, that's all.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
We
by
have-
putting a vehicle out front with the billboard sign.
Yeah, if it was just a sign on the door, it'd be
We have
okay.
some pictures of almost every one of these
If
coming up.
it's an inoperable vehicle,
Okay,
and you just put it there to put a sign on it, clearly that is a violation of
The
this.
clock guy out there on South Division,
That's coming
clock
up.
repair.
Yeah, the pictures that you have in the packet that I
Yeah,
saw.
it's coming up.
so but before we move on, one more question, I'll shut up, is back, if we can back up, Aaron, a couple slides to the beginning of that? No, forward. Okay, one more. Okay, off-premise signs, including billboards. What do we mean by billboards?
Good question, that was my question.
billboards are off-site advertising signs.
Or even if they're on-site?
Of the,
Billboard's a billboard.
That's talking off premise right there.
Well,
Okay.
there are pole signs, which would be on-site,
right.
where a billboard, we have a definition of a billboard.
We don't have a definition for billboard, but it would be a post sign.
So,
let me say then,
let me
we
give you an
have-
example.
excuse me,
At Pine,
what-
I'm sorry, at Pine and Noble, there's a sign for Stables.
Yeah.
Stables is at Division and Noble.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's the
off-premise.
off-premise billboard that
Right.
you're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
So
But
what
then
happens
what
to
I'm
those?
talking about is, we have billboard companies up and down Division, and they rent space on that. So how is that,
Her grandfather,
so they can, so
they
people,
can't put
so
up
that,
new ones.
they can't put new ones up, but then they can sell off-premises advertising to people around town.
They can take the existing sign, they can change the face on it, they can do routine maintenance, but they cannot change the structure itself. So if
Right,
it gets
right.
bad enough, they have to take it down and repair the structure.
It goes away.
It goes away.
But I'm
As long
just
as
saying,
you just
but
put
it can
new faces
advertise,
on
but
it.
that is one of the exceptions to
But
off-premises
you should,
advertising.
you
Yes,
should
that-
not see any new off-premise signs, billboard signs going up.
Now, let me ask you a question. Isn't the putting new faces on it an interpretation? Or is that in writing?
That is an interpretation.
So one could interpret, anytime someone could interpret one way, an opposite interpretation can take place.
It's an interpretation our city attorney concurs with.
Okay. What about other attorneys?
They can go to court.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's a
as
pretty
far as-
standard
As far as the stuff we've
interpretation
got in
of our
existence right now, we're not planning on doing anything.
You know where I was
No.
going with that, so
I know where you're
Correct.
going. Correct. We
Okay.
don't want to create any hardships for anybody. We don't want things, as long as we don't have issues, we plan to leave alone, but we want to make sure that anything new meets our sign requirements, unless there's something in here you have a heartburn as a city council as we go through it. We want any new signs to meet these requirements.
Okay.
Any signs that are taken down or to rebuild them, it's not just simple maintenance or changing the face of it,
tornado comes
They-
through, wipes it
they're
out.
gone. Tractor backs into it.
What if they put it back up at that point? We say they're gone, but
Then we would write them up for doing that.
then would we take it down?
Subject to fine.
Or would we leave it up and let it be grandfathered?
Every day
subject
it's
to a
up,
fine?
it's another fine.
They have
Okay,
to take it down themselves.
so it would have to come down.
Yes, eventually,
Or somehow meet our spec.
correct.
Well, it
can't-
couldn't if it's
it couldn't.
offsite
Yeah,
advertising.
it couldn't
in that case, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Any sign that may interfere with the view or be confused with traffic control sign, signal, or device.
Slipped over banner signs.
Did I slip over banner signs?
Yep.
Okay, banner signs are prohibited except for temporary use. And we'll define what temporary use is here in the next few slides. And any sign that may interfere with the view or be confused with traffic control devices. Next slide. Signs for business, no longer operating. Digital displays are permitted as long as they remain constant for at least 6 seconds.
What about the nit scenario with that?
The which scenario?
The nit, the brightness of it.
Right.
Because there's some in town that are so bright, depending upon if they
So-
put them on light,
That's
it blinds you
covered
going
later.
by it.
Yeah, it is covered later.
Okay.
Let's cover it later.
Scrolling text cannot exceed 6 seconds. So I guess.
Okay, I gotta back you up one more time. I'm sorry, I keep trying to talk at the
Jump,
same time as
go,
somebody
jump,
else.
Jim.
Trouble.
Called
Signs for
interruption.
businesses no longer operating. You're talking, by signs, we're not talking about a sign painted on the side of a building. We're talking about an actual sign that could be taken off of and reattached to.
Romans sign, still down on Romans sign, still down on
It
division.
needs to come
Okay.
down, is that what we're saying?
It should have came down when they moved location.
Well, no, I'm trying to clarify signs,
Yes,
okay? Signs aren't like Herzl's grocery store is painted on the side of on the building down here on Second Street and it's been there for 100 years.
right.
Okay, we're not talking about that as a sign.
And
We're
that's also
talking
in the
about
historic
an actual removable, separate thing that is attached to a building, not a painted sign. Is that correct?
No, they're talking about that sign on the building.
So we gotta go out and
But in that
No, that's
case,
in
you
the
won't need to
historic
because
district,
that's
and that's under a
historic
different set of rules.
Yeah.
okay.
What he's
all right,
talking about
okay.
is removing the sign like down at Romans, where Romans' old facility.
Well, I think it's a good question.
Those would be treated as murals.
Right.
not
Okay,
signs.
okay, thank you, thank you.
But no, if it was
No,
an
that's
existing
fine.
business down on Division or somewhere outside of the historical, and they had the sign painted on the side of the building, like the old depot thing down there, and then all of a sudden they sell it or it goes out of business, it closed down, that sign has to go away. Is that what we're saying?
Well, I
It
thought I just
depends
heard
on
say
whether
it's a
you
mural.
classify as a mural or a sign.
If it's on a building, it's a mural. If it's attached, it's a sign.
And I can tell you that there will be times we'll get into gray areas on that.
Yeah, there's one.
But typically, when you paint it on the building.
It becomes a
you're-
mural.
You're painting a mural on the building.
Did you get that, Chris?
L. Eaton's has been there for
Do you
75
have to
years.
have, do you have to have a permit for a mural?
Can I ask a question
Go
on
through the
that?
historic
on-
district on that deal.
Yeah,
Can
that
I
goes
ask-
in front of it.
Can I ask a question on that particular issue? And it's probably not fair to you guys, but do you know what the driving force was for that? I mean, was that, do you have any idea why that was put into the ordinance?
The,
Let me
the
just-
taking down existing signs?
When there isn't a business?
Honestly, not really.
When I first read through this, when I first got the package, I saw the Romas thing, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, is it better to look at the Roma sign up there than to have that piece of plastic taken off,
Right,
and all you see is the bulbs behind it?
right.
Which I think, answer,
It's an eyesore.
it would be worse, much worse, to have that sign taken out and an opaque white one not put in.
Right.
And then I went to, so why did we put that in the ordinance initially? I wonder why.
Well, it would be
Who
better.
knows what a council did in the years gone by?
Well, as I remember when we went over this, we did go over the sign ordinance years ago, sitting in planning, and it was confusing, and a lot of times the signs were dilapidated, they were falling apart, and they were just left for years and years, and it started looking.
I would totally agree with that.
So a lot of
That's
times
not
they
what our
just-
ordinance says.
Well, so they'd take the panel and turn it around backwards.
So, do you want it to read dilapidated sign?
I would, something like that, yes.
Well,
Anyway, I
in that
didn't,
particular case, I think you'd have.
That's why we're having this workshop.
You'd be able to go ahead and leave it there because the business is operating. But it becomes off-premise signage at that point.
Yeah.
So it's a double whammy.
But let's be real clear, with having this workshop, the council could get together and amend.
Correct.
All of
And
this. Oh, yeah, we can
Mark,
amend it.
is that one you'd like for us to do some additional research on?
I certainly would.
Okay,
I
so
think it
we-
needs better.
Yeah, I don't want it to
I think-
become,
I
I don't
think
want it
it's
to
better
become
definition.
I don't want it to become a burden, a financial burden for a business that's trying to better themselves, like Roma's,
No,
for
yeah.
example.
Sure.
Trying to better themselves by buying a building versus leasing
then
one,
take care
and then
of it.
have to go, I don't even know, maybe it's up to the landlords, the owner of the place, to get rid of the sign and not the past business anyway.
Right, and we wanna be business friendly in Guthrie too.
Exactly.
We don't wanna just make it so hard to put a sign up or
Right.
change signs to the point where you can't put a sign up
Exactly.
because that's what brings people in to shop.
We will do some additional research on signs for businesses that are no longer
Okay.
operating.
Go ahead.
And report back.
All right, thank you, go ahead. Next.
All right, signs erected in, projecting into, or placed in the public right of way. Outdoor advertising signs, including billboards, and on fences. Signs on structures larger than is reasonably necessary to support the sign. And then there's a couple of qualifying factors that portable trailer signs may be used for nonprofit organizations, and they shall only be utilized and visible to the public 2 days before the event, during the event, and shall be removed 1 day after the event. But they're not supposed to stay over 14 days. So 2 weeks on that one. The
Not
next
enough
qualifying factor is legally. You want to talk about that one?
That's just not enough time. If you're having an event, let's just say 89ers, which is coming up, putting up a sign, which their cowboy, which they hold their sign that has the date and all that kind of stuff on it. I guess that classifies as a sign. Putting it up 2 days before the event, was that the?
Right.
It's a portable trailer sign.
Like the churches
Where
use
they
for their
put the-
spaghetti supper and stuff
They have
like
all the
that.
changeable
Or
letters on there.
not-for-profit.
Oh, so it's just the portable
Backlit.
trailer.
Yes.
Backlit with
We've been putting
the
those
changeable
signs up
letters.
since I was probably.
But even though I think that's still short too,
I
I
think
would,
that's-
I would think, a week
Yeah.
prior so people know that it's coming, I wouldn't feel so bad about it.
Yeah.
They've all been
too.
stolen.
That's just 2 days prior.
Yeah, it's only 2 days, I think it'd give it a little more than that, that seems to be short
Yeah,
to
we
me.
probably
That's
ought
I
to
think we
something
need to
look at.
revisit that.
Revisit the time on that.
Yeah, at least, I mean, I can
Time
see getting
constraint.
rid of it as
Now
soon
we're
as
doing,
as soon
now
as
we're
it's
doing
over,
ordinance
go away.
modification.
As we go along?
Yeah, as we go
I like
along.
that.
We're just a rolling thing here.
Let's modify some stuff, Jeff.
Load it back in my truck and drive down the town.
All right,
Paint
next.
it on the side of a rail.
Yeah, there you go. And just
The
roll it
next
in
qualifying
down the street and
factor-
let it set.
Is legally non-conforming billboard signs are signs which lawfully erected and maintained prior to the enactment of this section and any amendments thereto, and which do not conform to all the applicable regulations and restrictions of this code.
That's exactly what you're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about with the billboards down division, the actual true
Billboards.
Yeah.
rental space on,
Were built before this was adopted.
yeah.
And this was adopted in 2010.
So what about that?
10, yeah, it's been 8 years ago.
So. they're
The only thing that
considered-
goes away is if it gets wiped out by a tornado or a semi runs into it,
Or they structurally want to alter it,
even or fix it.
or fix it.
Right.
And I think the mayor's question relative to portable trailer signs, that's the one with the arrow on it?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I was.
But if you look at temporary signs, when we get to it, that are available for, temporary public interest signs, including portable signs, inflatables, wind-operated devices, and banners announcing activities or events of a public, civic, philanthropic, or religious organization shall be subject to the following. Number 4, temporary signs shall be permitted for a maximum of 30 days, and no additional temporary sign shall be permitted on the same track for a period of 30 days after removal of the previous sign,
Okay.
upon expiration of the signs being removed. So, like for 89ers, that sign, that temporary sign can be there for 30 days.
Got it.
But what about a church that's advertising their spaghetti dinner or something?
30 days.
Okay, but then all of a sudden they're getting ready to have a rummage sale after that.
They'll put up a different sign.
That's a
You can't put up the
Yeah.
different sign because he said you gotta wait 30 days.
No, 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 no.
Move it down 10 feet.
Isn't that what you just said? That
Yes.
you have to wait
Yes.
30 days
Yes.
prior to doing it?
Yes. Yeah, but if they're gonna do the rummage sale, most of them are gonna know about it anyway. And you can put it up in a
I'm
couple
just
days.
saying, if, what he's
Can't
saying
use
is
the
if we're gonna
same
follow
site for the
if
same
we're gonna
sign.
follow the letter of this ordinance, if I'm a church and I'm putting up a spaghetti dinner sign, okay, and then spaghetti dinner's come and gone, that's a big part of my fundraising for the church, okay, now I'm putting up a rummage sale sign, I can't,
For
For 30 days.
For 30 days.
okay, and I don't like that.
Can you just,
Personally.
can you move to a different location?
Well, what we
But I
would,
see what you're saying, you don't wanna make it permanent either.
Yeah,
what we would probably do is, I think on some of this, you're gonna have a common sense application of the ordinance, and it was a different event, we would probably let them
there's
do.
gonna be a spirit of the law and a letter of the law.
Well, that's our
And that's where
problem,
it comes into a
people,
problem.
that's the
yeah.
problem we've had,
Yes.
is living by the spirit.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes when I get close, we
The
don't even
upside to
tickle
it
the
is you'll have
spirit.
two gentlemen that can make that determination, is what I would say. And if there's something that somebody gripes, they can come to us and ask us about it.
Otherwise, you would have to put it in there for a different event. You'd have to put a clause in there for a different event, and we can look at doing that if that's what you.
But you could end up with a sign there perpetually.
Yeah.
That's what,
Yeah,
that's the
so-
problem.
Yeah,
Problem.
right, you
And
could.
here's the thing, possibly you could add to that, if there's like 2 or 3 consecutive at the same,
Well, why don't we,
And then they would, it's like, okay, no more, or you have to put in a permanent sign, and
but we're only talking about churches. Were you talking about something else? Can you read that
Well,
first
or
sentence
anything.
again?
It would be public, other events, activities or other events of a public, civic, philanthropical, or religious organization.
Public, which would be us. Civic, that'd be us too. So we get all kinds of.
you're not so philanthropic.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We're not so philanthropic.
Well, I think clearly the intent was that it couldn't be manipulated such that it becomes
A permanent
a
sign.
permanent
Right.
sign.
Right,
Correct.
I agree.
So how
And
do
I
we-
think that
how do
becomes
we-
up to y'all
how
to
do we
decide
fit-
when that is.
Or how do we
That's-
fit the language
I'd like
to
to-
make that
but
easier
that's-
to enforce?
Well, I'd like to fix it to where it's not up to interpretation, because again, your interpretation could be totally different than yours, which could be totally different than mine.
Well, that's
You're
the
gonna have to
problem.
take
and that is
language
what-
out of it before you can do that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Then maybe that's what we should
There's
do.
not gonna have, there's not gonna be any language in it, because
Use a
it
consecutive
Yeah,
can
month
all be
clause.
interpreted.
Jay?
Like it can't be up for more than 3 consecutive months.
Yeah,
but
that's
it has
an
to have
idea.
a different, each month it can have a different idea, but it can't be up more than 3 months or 4 months, whatever you do.
Something like that. But I think the intent was to not have it be able to be manipulated to be a permanent thing.
Guys, come on, look at it. You're gonna take all the coffee, give me a scratch.
All right, let's go on with the next one.
Coffee break, guys.
I made it, and even on top of this, I don't have a full cup.
Okay, listen up. Go ahead.
So, here, of course, those are traffic control devices in the window there. But this is where I was gonna cover the NITs. During the day, you're allowed 6,500 NITs. And at night, it's supposed to go to 500 NITs.
So that would not comply. The light,
It would have to dim down at night.
that scares me every time.
Under
I see
that.
it.
So let me jump right in
What I
here
do
real
now,
quick because
don't
this
they
is
turn
really
them off at
important. Okay, so you're basing the night nits and day nits on lights that are not assigned. Okay, so
Right.
now what happens to lights that are not assigned that are way too bright and just blasting neighbors on their front porches and stuff?
That's the
Same
same.
deal?
That's the same deal, yeah.
Leroy, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a street light, that's not a sign.
I was gonna
That'd be
say, that's a
different.
nuisance.
I said,
That's not a
I
sign.
said a light.
Yeah.
A light's a light.
But you're
That's-
talking about a light fixture, not
Talking about a
sign.
light fixture.
We do not have an ordinance relative to that. Some cities do.
Are you
but
talking
we do
about
not.
the light in the window, those, the?
No, I'm talking about street lights on a
Parking
business that's
lot
blinding neighbors,
Yeah.
and they won't turn the lights, all they gotta do is move them. But
Yeah.
getting back to that one, that's not a sign, that's just a light in the window.
And it's back 3 foot, I would imagine, from the window. And that's part
That's
of the
not a
ordinance.
sign.
Now, that's,
They turn
this is
them off
in the
at night.
historic district, and that was one thing
I'm not
about,
sure.
I know in a
think they
historic,
It's in here for discussion.
or on it for different.
You're getting plenty of that.
Yeah,
Trying
oh
to
yeah.
hear you, Ed. What do you?
The-
That's what we wanted.
The potential on that one is it could be misinterpreted as a
Please.
Emergency
Police
vehicle.
emergency.
vehicle.
They're not supposed to use the those.
Correct.
Well, I mean, if the
particular
purpose
color
of it is to draw attention to the business, I think it's a sign.
It's a
Yeah.
contravance is
Yes.
the term that's used in the ordinance.
Contra what?
Contravance. So it's a,
It happens to be Vance's
Yeah, it has to be
business.
Vance's business.
light. Would have to be his.
When we looked up the definition of contravance, it was anything built that can be used to draw attention to a event, or basically it's something you build to use as a sign.
Right.
So what do we do about a window tinting sign like that? Because that's clearly outside of the ordinance, right?
No, there's a
Uh,
Or
banner.
is it? The banner
There's
sign.
a banner,
And it's.
part of the
Yes.
ordinance.
it's inside, so.
I was gonna ask if it makes a difference whether
Yeah,
it's
it is
inside or
inside,
outside.
so it's not a,
So it's fine.
Well, there's some other window signs we'll get to in a few
Yeah.
more slides that we need some more
That is
clarification on what you
definitely in
guys
the
want
gray,
to
well,
do.
that being in the historic district, it is in the.
Okay, we
gray
gotta
You
area.
better let them get to
We got-
It
yeah,
is the
let's-
gray area.
Let's try to move on.
okay,
Obviously, we're not gonna solve this tonight, but
Sure.
we need to try to get the full picture of what you guys are dealing with.
yeah. Okay, so this is an off-premise billboard. There's actually, they've got their, project sign and there's an off-premise billboard there. So that's, what that one was.
But the off-premise billboard was a special use permit that was granted to them in 2011,
Ah.
a year after the ordinance was adopted.
Okay.
The next one is, well, we had no permit, we already talked about that, for changing the face. The bottom sign.
The digital sign?
Didn't display for 6 seconds, and I think that that's in there so passerbys can read the sign without trying to look back
Sure, yeah.
and
Cause a wreck.
cause a
So it
wreck.
has to be more than 6 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, next slide is signs attached to utility poles.
So in case you're gonna have to get all your signs off the poles. I was hoping one of yours was up there.
It wouldn't be kinda funny, wouldn't it? Some of us.
On the next slide, there isn't a permanent sign at this location, but there's several temp signs.
Including the one on the vehicle.
And there's what your billboard looks like without anything in it, so.
So what do you do about that? I mean,
I'd rather have something in it.
But it's a functioning vehicle.
No, it's been sitting there for a long time.
I'm talking
It
about the
doesn't
little
go
back.
signs.
That doesn't mean it's not a functioning vehicle.
It doesn't move?
And then the
It's been there at
jewelry
least
repair
10
signs,
years,
I don't, you know,
Probably
that's,
longer than that. I
but
bet.
as long as they're what, 15 foot from the curb, that is, but even that's not.
We would have to look at if the state easement's bigger. It can't be in the easement at all. So we'd have to see where the state easement reaches. They are all temporary signs. There's no permanent sign for the business. He actually has 4 of them. They're supposed to be 100 feet apart,
Yeah.
which they're not even close.
The temporary signs were?
Yes. And he can have them for 30 days, and then they're supposed to be gone for 30 days. So this gets back into what we were discussing about changing events.
So if I had 2 different designs of sign, I could go out there and I put one in for 30 days, go out and replace it with the other one, take the other ones back in the shop, and continually rotate my signs. And still have a sign out there forever.
It actually says that you can't have another temporary sign. So regardless of what temporary signs you're using, you can't have another one there for 30 days.
It is 30
So it should
on,
go
30 off.
away for 30 days.
But then we get into interpretation, because I can move it back 10 feet and move this one back 10 feet and do the same thing all over again.
Same
Per
property.
tract of
I
property.
think it's
One tract of
Okay,
property.
okay, okay.
All right, on the next slide, we got more temporary signs, a banner sign, some off-site advertising, the little one down in the corner. And you see this at almost every gas station in town, right?
I never replace that.
On the next slide,
Getting back to that one you just went by, that's actually supposed to be city road right there, going up to Roller Coaster
Yeah,
Road.
it's triplet / roller coaster.
I'm gonna fix that, that's another.
So that's all city easement?
Yeah. It's all city property heading back towards the stoplight.
okay, on the next slide, we got a temporary banner sign being used as their project sign. And then,
That's the one on the bottom,
Yeah, the China
China
Star.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
Just
considered a temporary sign,
which,
you know, you could do that until you get your permanent sign.
So is there a permanent one supposed to go right above it in the orange deal?
Somewhere on there.
'Cause there's
Well,
no
it's been
other
there
room
more than
for it.
30 days, so.
Yeah.
Color.
And the Dollar General sign is
4 or 5
gone
years.
now.
The Dollar General sign's gone?
Yeah, I think it's just a holder, like what you were talking about.
Huh.
The bulbs are
looks
showing.
terrible.
That was just, took that picture on the 6th,
Still there.
so that was recent.
I thought I didn't pay attention to it. I should have looked at it. I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I thought it was there, but I mean, I just went to Dollar General a couple weeks ago. and it was
Oh,
there,
maybe
so.
it is. There's another one that's gone.
It was there on the 6th.
It's there, isn't it?
Hibbett Sports is
It
gone.
was there on the 6th.
Yeah, it's Hibbert
Or
Sports.
maybe it's
That was it.
Hibbett's,
That's
yeah.
what was
Hibbert
on the
was
orange
down
sign,
there.
and that's why China Star's underneath it, because there wasn't a place for them.
So China Star needs to get on the orange sign. Chris
So-
will publish that in his news blog.
And if you remember the front shot of this that I took from across the street, there was a banner going across and it's in front of the donation box. So it blocks the view of the donation box and the China Star grand opening sign.
And it's on right away.
What
It's
about
on
the
right away.
donation box? That's a sign.
Yes, and it's off premises.
And it's almost on easement.
You know, now again, that's something that is for good cause, you know, so,
I mean,
but, you know, China Star would say, so is mine. So,
but
yeah.
really, is that a
That's-
sign? I mean.
That
it's
is on
just-
premise sign because it's, the donation box is actually there.
Right
Yeah,
there.
That's what it's
Yeah.
advertised.
Yeah,
So it's a collection point.
We need to let him move on.
Okay, yeah.
All right, next sign, you know, we got the no longer operating here sign, the banner sign in front of it, and then off premise advertising with the bingo sign. And there's a bigger sign back behind it for the ice machine and a real estate sign.
who owns that piece of property there?
Jeff,
Is that
Jeff Chapel. Matter of fact, all of that property is his.
Well, Jeff-
When we were doing the math, the ice machine can't be, what was it?
48
You
square
don't own
feet.
the ice machine.
48 square feet.
You just lease it that.
So, they got 2 plus the little ones, so,
So they're over the max amount.
yes. But were approved at the point in time they were approved. I don't know when the ice machine went in, so.
Not too long ago,
Well, it's been some years.
Several years.
It's been-
Yeah.
3 or 4 years.
Three of them, maybe 5 years now.
I'm with you, Mayor. I think that looks a whole lot better than an empty sign, but
Oh, hell yeah.
Where do we have the flag signs?
They're
Mother.
towards,
Okay.
they're coming up.
Okay.
Okay, we got 20 minutes.
In the
guys.
next slide, we got for lots over 150 foot wide, the total area signage shall not exceed 600 square feet. That means all the signage combined on one piece of property. So, and then I put this shot in there, it's just another, this Loves, and
You have the pole sign for Loves, you have the pole sign for Godfathers, you have 4 sides around the canopy for the pumps, you have all the signs on the pumps, and you have the 4 sides around the building and the Godfather sign around the building, so,
and you really can't see the temporary signs in front that are there too.
yes.
Next slide, there's not a permanent sign at this structure, at this business yet.
But
But we
one
wanted
thing-
to discuss the windows on that. There's no ordinance prohibiting completely filling a window, and I don't know if you may have been in that store, but you can
That's the
see
new
out.
store, isn't it?
Yes, on the west side.
Signs everywhere.
So you can see out the windows,
Mhm.
but you can't see in. And there's some cities that have adopted ordinances that say.
Police department can't see in there.
That's right. If they were.
I didn't know we were
reporting
gonna
to
go this route. We approved that metal top, but didn't realize they were gonna do that.
So, if a police officer was reporting to a robbery, you know, he wouldn't be able to see in before he entered the store.
And you can't either.
I was gonna say, if they're being
Yeah.
robbed, you
Yeah.
you wouldn't know that either. Till
You walk in
the
on
door.
it.
Well, maybe something we need to research is really coming up with ordinances for protection on that, and also sign heights. And how is it gonna be a brick pedestal with a sign, a lit sign, or reverse lit sign, or is it gonna be something like this? Instead of pole signs, will it be, something lower to the ground for visual?
There are some ground mounted signs in the ordinance already.
But I mean, right now, we can have pole signs up and down Division, and I'm sure they're probably gonna wanna have a pole sign out front of that too, eventually.
Sure. Okay, so now we're on the temporary signs. They don't require a permit, but they do require registration. That states when they'll be displayed and be removed. But there's still no off-site advertising.
And nobody is registering those.
What do you mean they need to be registered?
Fill out a form, turn it in. One is gonna be displayed, one's gonna be removed, it's temporary.
So all the political signs are considered
Well,
temporary?
no, that's a different, let's
There's
not go there
a
right
section that covers those.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna go to that in a
Yeah,
minute.
I know,
I'm wondering if this wouldn't cover your 1800 day
it might.
sign.
They must be 100 feet apart and one temporary sign per tract of ownership. You can have it for 30 days and it's supposed to be gone for 30 days before we could register another one. On the next slide, we've got this is the same location we looked at earlier. I was gonna cover real estate signs at this point. I didn't see a whole lot of real estate signs that weren't in, on-premise real estate signs that weren't in conformance, but they're a maximum of a year, and the Board of Adjustments can grant another year, and then nothing after that. They're not supposed to be on public right of way, and the open house signs are 24 hours in advance and come down at the end of the event. On the next slide, we got another off-site advertising, temporary. Same on the next slide. That's considered temporary because it's not permanently mounted. So it falls under the temporary definition.
But they take that down, don't they?
Well, it was there when I took the pictures. I don't know.
And it's still there.
It's still sitting there. It was there tonight when I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fallen over once and they just put it right back up.
It's secured to 2 T-posts, or semi-secured to 2 T-posts.
Is that
So-
banner right there, what you were looking at in this one?
There's the feather sign,
Yeah.
and there is also the A-frame. Historical Society has allowed them to have the A-frames, one per business. They can put them out during business hours, but they must go back in. But they have to be on their in front of their business.
And they can't obstruct any pedestrian traffic.
Right.
Gotta have
So
4 feet.
are we saying
So-
that there is a pass in the historical district, whereas if you're outside the historical district,
You can't have the A-frames?
yeah,
According to our ordinance, yes.
that's what I'm hearing, okay?
Yeah.
Well, that's just not fair.
Move downtown.
But the feather sign is not the A-frame.
No, I understand.
So it is a temporary sign that was not registered. There's several of those through town.
So my understanding on
Yes.
those are supposed to be flags, not an open sign for the business, correct?
Yes, where that one is.
And even in
Correct.
historical downtown.
Yeah, and you have them all over, but you all have them all up and down Division. If we could, while we're
Right there.
talking about the
That's part of it.
feather signs, we have a representative from the Galleria. I think everybody knows him, but if, I'll let you introduce yourself. I'd like for you to hear, because we want to be business friendly.
Right.
I'd like to hear from him some of his comments of how some of these temporary signs makes a difference in his sales.
Yeah, and hi guys, thank y'all for having me. With us, we've got multiple locations, and we see a really big boost when we have the signs up at all the high traffic areas, and particularly my location with it sitting recessed away from actually being on the road. As I got Walgreens sitting in front of me, I almost have to have something like that to get traffic, and when I was unfortunately forced to pull them down, it was several people a day that I wasn't seeing that I normally would, and it made about a $40,000 difference between me and the Chickasha store, which we historically run the same numbers almost exactly, which I'm proud of because it's 6,000 more people at Chickasha than Guthrie. But it helps quite a bit because there's so much traffic that comes up Division that's coming from Crescent, coming from whatever small town, and coming through this direction. And so it helps our business out tremendously, and I assume that it probably helps out everybody else up and down the Division that has one.
Now, where are you're talking about those tall flag looking?
Yeah, the 12-foot flags on 15-foot poles.
So where were they going? Right in the sidewalk, right in the front out there?
Yeah, I had them out there about probably 4 feet away from the edge of the road, and going straight up out there.
I didn't realize there was a place to put them. Where you just stick them right in the ground?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just stick in with a spike.
They're in the grassy area, which is inside the right of way.
Well,
If
this is
they
a
were
conundrum
moved
we got.
back-
We can't have a business losing 40 grand in monthly revenue because of a sign.
That's not the point I'm getting to.
Right.
I'm talking about location.
Right,
Because anywhere that they could put them is asphalt.
right. That's what I'm.
And so that's why it forces them out to grass, which is an area that they're not supposed to be. That's why we wanted him here tonight to talk about the impact if we enforce this, what it does to businesses.
Well, we should probably talk about the grassy area, because I know that in a lot of this grassy area, there's a lot of businesses that keep that up and not the city. And so to not be able to put a sign out there is ludicrous. It's just ridiculous.
Well,
If we're gonna be able to put signs anywhere,
unless it impacts visibility.
unless it impacts visibility.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Well, and like
For
you're saying, we're
traffic.
gonna have to
Right,
come up with some,
But you can't have a business losing 40K over not being able to put signs up. But then that's your problem in one degree, because then you got the next guy over here that now all of a sudden you gotta strip your I'm open sign down, and he's gonna lose probably the same amount.
Yeah.
So, where does it stop? I always thought those little holes, I thought those little holes in front of the businesses all through the historic district were to be able to put a sign that says, hey, I'm open. And let me tell you, it should. Just like he ought to be able to have in the asphalt up there some holes that put his thing, hey, I'm back here. We got a big sale
Well, I
going
think
on
those
today.
holes were intended for parades and things of that nature, where you put the American flag or a
Exactly. for
well, they
flag.
were
89
parking
day
meters,
flag,
and that,
something
when
like
they
that,
pulled them
those were
out, that's
intended.
Well,
what
that's
was left.
exactly what they were intended for, but if you look at every business down there, they put an open
I
sign
realize
flag in
that,
there.
but that's not what they were intended for.
That's exactly.
Well, what they were is parking meters.
But
But-
if you think about where
They probably
Galleria
were
not
They
there.
were parking meters.
if you think about where Galleria is and how many businesses are, there's gotta be some limit. What if everybody put out 4 feather flags?
Right, no, I agree, that's a problem.
You have, and there's a ton of them up and down Division. But that's why we wanted to visit tonight, to get your input on things we might want to look at. One, when you go tell somebody, you gotta follow this ordinance, and they can point to 12 places in town that doesn't follow the ordinance, all we can tell them is, we can't answer for what happened before, but going forward, we're gonna enforce the ordinance as written.
What are you gonna tell the little girl in the Sun uniform, Sun Loan uniform, sitting at the Walmart entryway that's off-site advertising to come over to their store? Or the tax guy, jumping
Sandwich
around,
board.
dancing to come into my tax business.
Or Lady Liberty out there.
That's what I'm talking about, Lady Liberty. I mean, it goes on and on. You're gonna fight this, dude. You're gonna have to go all the way and change
Well,
it.
there's
or
gonna have to be
figure
some
out what it is.
compromise on this, especially with some of these, the feather signs and the different things on the side of the roads, because obviously you can't lose $40,000. And we don't want you to. We want everybody to be, because that's tax dollars too. I mean, it helps the city, it helps you, it helps everybody. We can't just shut it down where we can't use it. So, yeah, it is.
Yeah, in the same instance, I don't wanna also have
That will
to
happen.
explain to Mary's Mill
No
why
to that.
they got a fine for a flag that they had out and I didn't get mine, didn't get out of code or something, so I mean, it needs to be in a fair way.
Right, so it's gonna, and it's gonna be, we're just gonna have to visit and see what kind of, how we can, because like you said, it's gonna have to be cut and dried one way or the other. We can't just be ambiguous with it, because then that's when it gets into the arguments here and it gets you guys in trouble.
Yes.
Because you're the ones that are gonna be facing the people saying you can't do this, and they're gonna be the ones jumping up and down screaming.
Which takes you back to the 30 days on, 30 days off.
Yeah.
So,
Which takes you to the fact that we have to be business friendly, just like we have to be builder friendly.
We have to have middle ground. We have to be business friendly, but we also don't want unsightly and unattractive.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
want this
nobody
to
wants
turn
to
into
go
just
down.
looking just.
But I
real
see there
trashy.
are some issues with the setbacks, because there's a lot of areas that, like the Sun Loan thing, okay, I guess it's Sun Loan. I just saw some girl with a big sunshine, or something, I say it was a girl, maybe it was a guy, with a big sunshine thing pointing off towards Domino's up there on the hill. Okay, nobody can see that. Why that was developed like that was insane in the first place, but because you can't see it. So you have to, how do you get to that one? You got the person with the sun outfit jumping around holding a sign, pointing it that way.
Well, I'm sure we're not the only community in the United States that has this same problem.
Well, when
Yeah.
I was in McAllister, I was over this as well, and when I went to city council, and I went through all of our property maintenance ordinance to get guidance, because what staff was finding, we'd go out and enforce something, we get a call from the city councilman, oh, I know so-and-so, we don't need to enforce that. Well, that makes it difficult for staff, so I went to city council meeting, I went through all the ordinances, and I said I want guidance. In McAllister, you know what they did? Instead of giving me in-guide answer, they just went to the next agenda item.
So we're not even gonna.
Yeah. There you go. Well, what I'm getting at here is.
So the answer to that is yes, it's in every community.
Yeah, every community has this problem, but there are communities, I'm sure, around Oklahoma City or Tulsa, or even going into Texas to, some of the different communities that have ordinances and sign ordinances.
Correct.
And if we can, instead of reinventing the wheel, maybe glean some of what they have had to do.
Our goal would be to find some happy middle where we're protecting the aesthetic
Yes.
of our community and be an attractive community, but at the same time be business friendly, where our businesses can get the attention they need to drive people into the store.
And
Are you
that's
guys
going to be a
sure?
very
Strike that
fine
happy
line.
You have more,
That's one
you have
of
more
the-
examples?
There's a, yeah,
A book
Okay.
of them.
probably more than
All
we
right.
can get through.
You
but
got
we can
5
go through them
minutes.
real fast. Okay, so this one, 4 feet clear on the sidewalk. The next slide,
A-frames and awnings.
yeah. And the next one's where we cover the yard sales. So you get your on-site sign for your yard sale is your permit, and it's a City of Guthrie sign. And you can get 2 more to place in the city right away, and they can only be up for 3 days. And you can only have 2 garage sale permits in every 3-month period. So On the next slide,
Allow garage sale permits in city right away, we need to allow it.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. We gotta stop right here for a second, because if we're gonna allow garage sale signs, which obviously are a fee-based sign, okay, that's a little bit sketchy. When we're gonna allow those in the city easement, but we're not gonna let anything else in the city easement, because we're not making $1 on it. But inadvertently, we are making $1 on
Yes,
it
we
because
are.
we're making tax revenue on it. So,
Remember though, those yard sale signs are pretty limited and temporary.
I know they are. They're
From
temporary,
Friday to
but
Monday.
still.
Yeah.
But
For
point
these.
taken. What
Yeah.
I would suggest, if you're agreeable, there's some areas that might need further research.
Yeah, I think there is.
Let staff do some additional research. Maybe we could have another work session and come back and say, here's some suggestions
Yeah.
staff come up with based on this. We're not gonna jump out and start enforcing this heavily until we come back and resolve some of these issues.
I agree.
I would
I
like
agree.
to see you guys come back to us and identify those areas that you see that are most out of compliance. And also those areas where the ambiguity causes or has potential for causing the most frustration. And where we may need to put more structure or finality into it. So that's
Sometimes
what
it's
I'd like
not
to see.
ambiguity, it's, they're there because it generates business, but our ordinance says it can't be.
I understand.
Okay,
I think that's where the balance is, that
And
we've
that's
got
where
to, where we've got to talk about.
Really good.
And clearly, it's not an easy issue. And I don't know that you can write an ordinance that's gonna fit every issue.
So in the meantime, if we're gonna do this and we're not gonna enforce anything until we come back and do this, what about Galleria, who's losing money on a daily basis, not having signs up?
I think the signs are back out.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we just stay status quo till we.
See, I didn't even notice them, and I drive by there to get here, so it's not, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Now,
really.
there are clearly some ordinances we went through, nobody had a problem with. We will continue to enforce those. But the ones that we had some questions about, those will probably do additional research, come back to you all before we start enforcing.
Can we
Unless-
cover-
Unless it's creating a traffic issue.
Can we cover one more? What about the election signs that are up?
Yeah,
That are up now?
Yes,
Oh, the ones,
it's more than 60 days away from the election.
yes. The best we could tell, the election's in June. And I've seen 3 that are up already.
Same candidate.
Are those,
Yes.
are those,
talking about the
they're there
mice.
for the primary?
primary's not till June.
June?
So, I mean, if we allow him to leave his, we're gonna be seeing more.
Yep.
Well,
Then
you
they
know,
need
the
to be
strange
doubled.
thing about it is if you look back to past elections, including my election, your election, and where we ran against each other, everything else, multiple city managers all at that point had everybody back off of campaign signs. But mine all ended up in a truck.
Well, I think,
Last election, were all
back.
disappeared as well.
I think we need to let Mr. Mize know that he needs to take them down.
It's hilarious.
That's our requirement. I agree. If we don't do that, we
We've
are
opened
open
the
for a
Pandora's
proliferation
box.
of other political candidates. And, I mean, his signs are attractive, but if that's our rules, I think that's what we need to,
So we're okay with that one.
I am, you know, we don't
Yeah.
vote in this process, but I think if that's what our ordinance says,
We got 1 minute, Mayor, we got a meeting to begin.
yes, sir.
No,
You're
you
gonna
are.
get it for me.
We will send you notice. Has this been helpful though?
Yes.
With Pictures and going through the
Yeah,
ordinance and having the
extremely.
photos.
Yeah, this is,
I,
and it's a
clarify
good
all
thing
that
that we need to know because everybody needs guidance here.
And I guess I
mean,
don't understand, I guess our, the word that we were discussing, signage, didn't get out very much. I would have expected that we would have a whole bunch of business owners sitting here, like Jay, and speaking from their perspective, because there are 2 perspectives here, and we want to honor.
35
those
seconds to our meeting
So,
downstairs.
Anyway,
Late last time too.
okay?